Welcome to In Touch Crime Beat. I'm Officer Don with Fayette Commonwealth's Attorney Ray Larson.
Out of jail, okay? Don't mess up.
And those are the people, those repeat offenders, the ones that go to prison. And
They say we're the #1 rated radio show in the whole country. Ray Larson, Ray, several topics right now with criminal justice news. What do you want to start with this morning?
I want to talk about how ragged you're looking.
Yeah, I looked a little ragged.
Let me tell.
That's still left over from what was it, Thursday, where I did the 24-hour standoff in the scissor lift. I call it a standoff. It was a standoff for me because Deanne Stevens, my radio partner, we did a little challenge with the bracket, and I think she consulted with Coach Cal because she beat me by about 60 points on her NCAA brackets this year. And so the deal was I had to spend 24 hours in a scissor lift above Nicholasville and New Circle. No food, no water, just barely a blanket.
No, you didn't. Wait a minute. You did have your hair products
I did have
and makeup.
So I did. I kept my end of the bargain, and I stood tall. But throughout the night, I basically had to fend off pigeons and police that were bored that decided they wanted to, harass me. My police buddies, of course, they couldn't pass up that opportunity. So I had plenty of water balloons. And
Now you're right here at the Clear Channel, which is at the intersection of New Circle Road and Nicholasville Road. And I got a call this morning from the Collision Reconstruction Unit about
Thursday.
Yeah. And about a fatality out there. Were you aware of that?
Well, I heard the sirens. It woke me up when I didn't hear the wreck, but I heard police responding to it at about 3, and I couldn't see it from me. I was what I thought was several hundred feet, probably about 80 feet up in the air there.
Yeah.
But I could not see that. But that was a bad wreck. The person actually ejected from the vehicle there. Why would they call you on a collision?
Well, the Collision Reconstruction, we got a good working relationship with the Collision Reconstruction Unit, where there are 4 attorneys in our office who have received a lot of training in the prosecution of vehicular homicides and serious assaults, serious physical injuries occur. And we get called. Lieutenant Chris Van Brackle, who heads up the Collision Reconstruction Unit, calls us, and the first question is whether or not is it a criminal case or is it not criminal and maybe, if anything, a civil matter.
Why would a wreck be a criminal case?
Well, if, for example, there was a drunk driver and the drunk driver had a passenger,
Mm-hmm.
and the passenger was killed as a result of a collision that the drunk driver had, either with a tree or with another car, then it can become a vehicular homicide.
Okay. So someone under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that takes them from a traffic violation to actually a criminal violation.
If somebody's killed as a result of their condition.
And was it always that way? Is that a recent change in Kentucky law?
No, it's vehicular homicides are. You just have to look at homicides.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody dies, then you talk about the mental state of the person who caused this death. For example, if you're driving drunk and you have a passenger in the car with you, and you go off the road and hit a tree, and your passenger is ejected and killed, the question is, you got a death, so that's element number 1, but the question is, what's your mental state? And
the mental state was you were drunk, right?
Well, that's street talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is, do you perceive the risk that driving drunk could cause somebody's physical injury or death? Yes or no? Yes. And do you do it? Yes. And does it cause somebody's death? That becomes manslaughter in the 2nd degree. You see, and that's a penalty of 5 to 10 years.
Well, isn't being drunk something that's held up as a defense for some people when they...
Voluntary intoxication, Officer Don, is not a defense to a manslaughter second degree charge.
is it a defense to a murder charge?
Um,
Let's say that I get drunk and I shoot.
Only to the extent that you are so intoxicated that you're practically passed out and cannot form any mental state. You see?
Is there a blood alcohol level that puts you there? Or
No,
is that
it's
just
a
based on
decision
circumstances?
juries make based on the evidence that's presented at a trial.
So what's the difference in that defense and someone who claims to be mentally ill? When a person is mentally ill, then obviously they're saying that they're not in a mental state, that they really know what they're doing. Well, I think a lot of people get drunk and don't remember what they have done.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same type of thing, or does the law specifically say that if you're drunk, you just can't really use that as a defense?
Well, voluntary intoxication, it says, is not a defense to manslaughter second-degree charge. Now, the other thing you're talking about is insanity.
Which is not voluntary.
No, it is in fact, if you're, in order to be found not guilty by reason of insanity, you have to show, number one, that you do not know right from wrong, and you cannot conform your conduct to the requirements of the law as a result. You see, and I've never had, since I've been Commonwealth Attorney in Fayette County since 1985, I've never had a not guilty by reason of insanity verdict. They're very rare.
So even if someone has a mental illness, that doesn't necessarily put them to the level of
Insanity?
insanity.
No.
There's
There's also a verdict called guilty but mentally ill. Remember the guy that Patrick Hutchinson that shot and killed Brenda Cowan?
the firefighter.
The Lieutenant Cowan, the firefighter.
And she was a firefighter that was responding to a female that had been shot, and which was this dude's wife. He basically shot and killed his wife.
Yeah.
Firefighters respond. They beat the police there because the firehouse was just down from where this occurred. And then as Brenda Cowan's trying to aid the victim, this guy shoots her from the house, right? And he kills the firefighter too.
Yeah.
So they got two dead people. Okay, so that's the dude. What happened?
Right. Well, he had a mental illness, and he was incompetent, meaning that he didn't know anything about the legal process and couldn't assist his defense attorneys. He was put into a mental hospital and was finally medicated and treated and so forth, and became competent. You have to have a hearing to determine that he's competent, and a psychiatrist has to come and talk about that. He was determined to be competent, and he pled guilty to murder, but mentally ill. I mean, there's no question the guy had mental illness, but he was competent, and he was responsible, means he was not insane, and so now he's in prison as a result of that.
So it didn't play much of a factor in his determination of guilt. Well, of course, this case he pled guilty, correct?
That's correct.
And sentencing's the same deal. And you just hear, and I think you see it more from TV, and maybe in some states it's like that. They'll get off by reason of insanity.
Yeah, well, it doesn't
Just
happen very often.
around. Of course, in Kentucky, what happens is they get found guilty of intentional murder or wanton murder, or maybe they had some mental issues, and they're going to let them out anyway. On the other end, so it doesn't really matter. They don't have to find them guilty by not reason of insanity. So that's
right.
sort of what we deal with here. So what else is going on?
Well, I got the report from the research planning and analysis unit of the police department. Every month I get this report, and I copy it and bring it out here and leave it with you, because you're always in the traffic business, and it has some traffic information.
Tune in to the following stations to hear the full episode.